OSIM. Warga plus 62 emang banyak maunya. Dari drakoran sampai banjir air mata. Nonton action yang mantul. Sampai nonton tendangan cantik. Maksudnya ini. Mau nonton apapun, semua ada di video. Mulai dari yang bikin berbunga-bunga, keringet dingin, ketawa, sampai bikin gak ngedip. Jadi, nonton apa sekarang?
Tak pernah ku berhenti, tak pernah ku menyerah
untuk raih peluang, untuk ambil keputusan.
Bisnis Indonesia, navigasi bisnisku. Bisnis Indonesia.
Bisnis Indonesia, navigasi bisnis terpercaya.
Perkenalkan, ini aplikasi terbaru kompas.com. Kamu bisa baca berita lebih nyaman. Buka aplikasinya, scroll, swipe, klik, dan baca berita yang kamu mau. Yang paling penting, iklannya lebih tertata dan tidak mengganggu. Semua topik favorit kamu ada di sini. Berita hari ini, semua ada di ujung jari. Download sekarang, baca berita lebih nyaman.
Hello and welcome everyone. Today is the 5th installment of C-Talks webinar series entitled Intricacies of Esports Law. My name is Andra Amadeo and I'm going to be your host for today. This webinar series is a part of UniPin Southeast Asia Cyber Arena 2022, also known as SEACA 2022. It is the largest esports tournament in Southeast Asia, inaugurated in 2018 by UniPin. This year's SEACA Major 2022 will bring an exciting series of events starting from today until the 29th of November 2022. UniPin SEACA Major 2022 is brought to you thanks to the support from our sponsors, OSIM, Inspiring Wellbeing, Odyssey, the Samsung gaming monitor, and the official streaming partner Video, and also the assistance from artists and Artist Valley and media partners. Today we're talking about the intricacies of esports law, and to talk about that, we have two excellent speakers today that have delved deep in both of the industries, the law industry and the esports industry. So without further ado, let me introduce our first speaker for today. He is the managing partner at KK's Lawyear, the first dedicated esports dedicated law firm in Indonesia. Please welcome Mr. Yudistira Adipratama.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for having me. The pleasure is always mine.
Okay, so for our second speaker, we have a Shoutcaster and legal officer for PT Elnusa Tbk, Mr. Muhammad Rasyad Wibisono.
Hey guys, thank you for having me today as well. It's great to be able to
Okay, so thank you for joining us in this webinar. First of all, how are you guys today?
I'm doing great. Such a good evening. How about you guys?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for asking. It's been a long day, but I'm super excited to be able to talk about esports law after a while, because it's usually just shoutcasting, and then I'm coming back, and then I get to talk with Mr. Yudistira as well. So it's definitely a very exciting moment for me.
Okay, so I guess to open our talk show today, I'm going to ask like a very basic question. What is your guys' opinion about the gaming and community's perspective towards law? We can start with Mr. Yudistira, I think.
So, okay, let's get started. When we talk about Indonesia, in this case, the gaming community is starting to understand the need and the impact of law enforcement. They are more aware about the law and started to obey it at preventive level, not only a repressive level, which is actually good. And I said this due to my personal experience as an esports attorney in Indonesia. I am the managing partner of KK's Lawyear, and KK's Lawyear is known as the first and I think the most influential law firm in the Indonesian esports ecosystem. Because that tagline is not made, in fact, it is the manifestation of our experience in answering the legal needs of Indonesian esports community. Because with this platform, in this case KK's Lawyear, we have much experience working together with club owners, game publishers, esports event organizers, KOL, and even the government as our clients. So that pretty much describe the need of legal service and regulatory awareness in the Indonesian esports community. To exemplify, after SEA Games 2022 that's been conducted several months ago, we provided esports athletes, in this case are the medalists, with free legal consultation voucher. And some of them started to take advantage of it by calling us to make a consultation about their rights. I can also share that esports clubs are also having higher degree of understanding about the need of law enforcement. In Indonesia, I handled at least 3 big esports clubs such as EVOS Esports, BPR Esports, and of course Boom Esports. And the need of their legal service are varied. Generally, people are asking for legal protection or legal representative for their cases, but some of them are more advanced and looking for insight about the business law aspect within the esports industry. We also have GOM publishers as our clients because they understand that they need to follow with the upgrading policy about esports in Indonesia. Besides these three stakeholders, Lawyear is also working with the parent organization in which we know as Indonesian Esports Federation, or originally called as Pengurus Besar Esports Indonesia. We help the organization in arranging its managerial regulation. So with that being the case, I can conclude that the gaming community understands that law is something that they have to aware of. However, compared to some countries where esports are known and grow much earlier than Indonesia, maybe we are not that advanced, but we are moving forward, and that is something that we have to appreciate.
Okay, so Mr. Yudistira talked about more of the law side, about the perspective of law. As a shoutcaster, Mr. Wibi, do you have any other inputs about the community's perspective? Maybe the shoutcaster perspective or the community you're in? How do they see law in the gaming industry?
I think Mr. Yudistira worded really well in regards to the structure of our current legal, not just regulations, but also how the community also approach, or I would call it legal literacy, is how I would usually say it. It definitely has increased. However, I feel like there is a bit of disparity in regards to being able to understand, basically legal contracts or just legal literacy in general, and then having, sort of being able to approach a lawyer or a legal consultant to be able to talk about it in length about your contracts or possibly a long-term deal. And I think one of the more interesting part is that of course Indonesia has evolved, and of course I've seen what Mr. Yudistira has done for Indonesian esports, and I believe it if you haven't been, I feel like there is a lot of how do I say it? Like kudos to Mr. Yudistira to be able to have such a strong presence in Indonesian esports. I think one of the issues as a shoutcaster, however, I feel like a lot of the shoutcaster, a lot of the talents, a lot of the players as well, isn't in a position to be able to request a lawyer in regards to be able to review their contracts, or being able to just sort of have consultations with them in regards to a lot of the employment agreements, or all kinds of like sponsorship agreements and all that stuff. And I feel like there is a certain barrier that we haven't really reached as in the legal industries that is in esports, to be able to sort of have a higher reach in the grassroots levels as well. So I feel like a lot of the smaller teams, a lot of the teams that is exactly on top there, because of course like EVOS, Boom, are teams that are pretty much already up there. Boom was just in TI, EVOS has been part of MPL since season 1 as well. But I feel like the grassroots has a lot of issues. And prior to me working in the energy industry, I did work with non-profits as well in esports, like the Disputi. And then I also did a bit of work with Morph as well. And I saw that there was, the issue definitely stemmed from the fact that younger players, or even just amateur teams that doesn't have the kind of money or the kind of funds to be able to hire lawyers or retainers, still have issues in regards to dealing with these stuff. And I feel like it would be really interesting to talk about it in depth in the future, hopefully.
Okay, so I heard a lot about law literacy or legal literacy in small teams or big teams in Indonesia. And I would like to ask you, I heard Mr. Yudistira also talk about how we're not exactly on par with like bigger countries where esports is growing way faster. So for now, how do you think the esports community's awareness is in law is, what level are they in right now? And if you guys think this is not, we're not in a satisfactory level yet, how do you think we can increase the awareness of law? Because I heard Mr. Wibi mention that it's hard for like smaller teams, and how do you think we can reach the smaller teams and upgrade their law literacy? I guess because you brought it up, I guess Mr. Wibi can start the topic.
I believe that PBSI, part of Mr. Yudi's team, has been putting sort of like a where if you do register to PBSI, you do have free legal consultations from you guys. Is that correct? And I believe that is a very good step towards getting there. I really appreciate the fact that, of course, PBSI and Mr. Yudistira himself is also making the move to be able to do more, like pro bonos and then pre-legal consultations as well, and it really, really helps getting there. But I believe at this point in time, it just takes time, and I believe that not everyone just can get from 0 to 100 that quick in legal literacy. It requires them to be more aware. It requires to have more cases or more issues coming up, because of course then we wouldn't be able to tackle it with them together. And I believe Mr. Yudistira is definitely in a really good position to be able to bring that literacy to a higher level.
Do you have anything to add, Mr. Yudistira?
Yes, I think socialization plays a significant role to increase more awareness about the law in the gaming community, and collaborative campaign is also something that we can do together, conference and seminar just like this one. And anyway, thanks to UniPin and SEACA community to arrange this occasion, because this also helps to raise the awareness of community about the importance of law within this milieu. So yeah, I think one of the example that I took before by providing pro bono service to the medalists or several athletes is just one of the way for me to provide the opportunity for them to make it able so that they can at least come and reach us. We try to be more reachable for them so that they can be more open about what really happens within their contract, because sometimes there is some, it's not easy for them to actually talk about it directly to their clubs. So I think, yeah, it's just a first step, but hopefully we are going to do it more and more again in the future.
Okay, so from Mr. Yudistira's first talking point, I also heard that KK's handled more than just teams or players. And Mr. Wibi also said there are problems in like player contracts and all that. So what do you guys think are the most important aspects in esports law that we have to tackle like soon, or right now, or in the near future? Like, what are the most important things that we need to set straight? I guess you can start, Mr. Yudistira.
So the most important aspect to take note in maybe in the esports law or Indonesian esports community, well, the first of all is we need to acknowledge that right now esports is already considered as a competitive sport, and every competitive sport it has to be managed under one particular parent organization, and the parent organization, which in this case is the Pengurus Besar Esports Indonesia or PBSI. And we need to understand that legally PBSI is given legal rights by the prevailing regulation in Indonesia to arrange its own managerial regulation. So the first thing that we have to take note and we have to consider as the most important aspect within the Indonesian esports milieu is the existing policy from the parent organization. And the second one will be because we kind of hope that esports can play a significant role to help the Indonesia's economy. We also have to consider about the business law aspect within the ecosystem. And last but not least is the criminal aspect, because there are a lot of criminal conducts actually in esports. There are so many unjust situations within the milieu. So I think, yeah, the three main critical points that we have to consider as important notes in Indonesian esports law is the policy from the parent organization, the business law aspect, and the criminal aspect.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Yudistira. How about you, Mr. Wibi? What do you think is the most important aspects? Do you agree with Mr. Yudistira? Is there anything you want to add, or is there something that Mr. Yudistira said that is important that you deem not as important as some things?
I do believe that I would definitely agree with Mr. Yudistira on this case. However, there are a couple of things that I would note on a more personal level as someone that has been in shoutcasting since 2015. I would like to add that, so of course, as a stakeholder, in a stakeholder's point of view, what Mr. Yudistira said, it was very well worded. But I feel like one of the other things that I have faced when I'm sort of, because usually at this point, I'm sort of like helping friends out in doing legal consultations, etc., etc. One of the main issues that I do realize that I see is that there is the concept of sort of just on a personal level, of course. There is this concept of client attorney privilege. I feel like a lot of the contracts in esports does mention that, oh, you can't, you can't share this contract with anyone, with any third parties, etc., etc., unless it is needed by the government. You kind of sort of, it sort of needs to be noted that lawyers are sort of part of your party, because they are working in your interest as well. So I think a lot of the when there a lot of players that does have the fun is trying to approach a lawyer, I feel like one of the main issues is that they don't really understand the point that when you're asking for a lawyer and you do have that client attorney privilege, it does help that we're sort of working on your side as well. So you can sort of freely show your contract, and then we would be able to discuss it on a much better standing. And aside from that, I definitely agree with Mr. Yudistira. I would like to also point out that the business law aspect of esports does matter a lot in regards to how we grow from here. And of course, one of the other issues that I would love to mention is that I feel like the labor laws in regards to sport feels like needs to be pointed out as well, because a lot of the players, a lot of the staffs, a lot of the influencers is also mentioned. They're usually under employment agreements, and I feel like this just doesn't only happen in Indonesia. I feel like it also happens on the Southeast Asian region as well, and I feel like it should be something that we should also sort of focus on the scene. But of course, it is also connected to the business law aspect of these things as well.
Okay, so to recap like everything, I think I personally would like this webinar to be somewhat of a help for people to increase their legal literacy and their law literacy, especially regarding esports. So I think to help people understand more, I would like to ask you guys, I heard a lot about like contracts and attorney-client privilege and all of that. So what do you think are some crucial things that are supposed to be in contracts, like regarding to labor laws and business laws? What do you guys think players and managers should take note that are mandatory, that you think are especially crucial to be in the contract that they should be aware of? We can start with Mr. Yudistira.
All right. So I think it's gonna be very rewarding if we have a lot of participants who are actually athletes, because this information is gonna be some kind of guidelines for them, and I think this is it's gonna be very beneficial for them if they can take it as notes. So some players are just going directly to the payment and salary clause when it comes about the signing process, about their career as an esports player in one particular esports club. It happens oftentimes, but really that is not the most important clause we need to think about. Remember about the rights is very important. You need to remember the rights, because rights is not limited to money, but also your freedom and any other fringe benefits that you can possibly obtain during your contract with your esports club. And you can actually worry less about your obligation, because the club will remind and instruct you anyway, but they will never remind you about your rights. So you need to stand for yourself to get your rights. And the second one would be the termination or transfer clause. Make sure they don't stop you in the middle of contract. Even if they do, make sure that you get adequate compensation due to that conduct. And last but not least is maybe problem settlement clause. You need to understand whether the agreement is open for mediation or amicable settlement. You need to understand that this time esports is a competitive sport, and we have federation that protect the ecosystem, so be aware. And I think that's the three most important elements to know within the athlete contract.
Okay, so how about you, Mr. Wibi? Do you have anything to add for player contracts, or maybe you would like to add things regarding Shoutcaster contracts, or the things that you have handled personally before?
I sort of reckon that it sort of works the same for Shoutcaster contracts as well. It's not too far apart with player contracts. I think one of the things that I would love to know is there's actually sort of two things that I would like to know. The first thing would be penalties, which was all sort of mentioned with Mr. Yudistira as well. Penalties is a very important aspect of your contract when you're not doing your obligation and then your team reminds you and you're still not doing it for whatever reason. I feel like a lot of what I've seen prior, so this is sort of, I do apologize, Mr. Yudistira. My part of seeing legal contracts is sort of outdated. The last 2 years I've been working in the energy industry, so do correct me in the middle if there's something sort of missing here as my explanation goes. I feel like one of the most important part is that penalty should be proportionate to the obligations that you are not doing. Sometimes we've seen that contracts, which sort of, you're not basically, I'm coming in late to the gaming house, or basically you're coming in late to an event, and then the penalty that you do receive is like pay cuts or even contract fees that is disproportionate to the obligations that you're actually sort of not doing. And I feel like it should sort of be, it should be mentioned there, because I think a lot of the labor laws in Southeast Asia doesn't really allow disproportionate penalties as well. And the other thing would be, I think this is an interesting conversation, and I would love to have Mr. Yudistira's opinion on this, is that non-compete clauses, because non-compete clauses is sort of in the borderline of antitrust or anti-competition law, where recently, 2021, Joe Biden has been, in USA, Joe Biden has been sort of against the concept of non-compete in employment agreements, and a lot of employer contracts that is not under employment are usually in an independent contractors agreement as well. And that non-compete, I feel like there should be some more awareness to the concept of non-compete and what is allowed in non-compete, and then what is just basically against the anti-competition law as well. So I feel like that should be a pretty interesting discussion if we ever touch that subject as well.
Mr. Yudistira, do you have anything to add about the non-compete clauses?
Well, speaking about non-compete clause, actually it happens in many areas, in many different arrays of professional sphere, not just in esports. It's like it's actually problematic, but sometimes it depends on the perspective of the people who are using that clause. Because sometimes when the employer provides that kind of clause, it's because they have something to protect, because they see the people in the company as their asset, and they don't want the people just absconding the knowledge they absorb from the company and then just go that way. So I think it is about, Pacta sunt servanda is very important in this case. We need to respect about the agreement that we are making, because, and the most important aspect about non-compete clause is actually, we need to understand that it is mutual, there is a mutual consent when we sign the contract. And if they saw that kind of clause and they still go with it, so I think it has to be fair when we talk about the implementation of that clause. So I think it is very important when we go to the preventive phase before we get involved into something that we don't really understand. So, and I think this is also open certain avenue for the lawyer to actually discuss about it and provide more information, a deeper information to this with this kind of ecosystem when we don't have to actually hire one particular lawyer. So again, this is a good opportunity for and again, I'm very happy because this kind of platform kind of provide free access for people to learn more and to be more aware about what they are going to face in sense of regulatory framework.
Okay, so with that, I think we can have our closing remarks from the speakers. Do you guys have any messages or tips about people, for people that want to be a part of the esports industry, whether it be in the law industry or esports in general? I think we can start with Mr. Yudistira. What do you think people should do or can do to start their careers in the esports or esports law industry?
Well, to start their career in esports law industry, I think it depends on. I would always say this to everyone I met. We need to consider ourselves as a special source. If you are very good, for example, with my own case, I'm very good at law. So when I want to bump into the esports ecosystem, then I can be an esports lawyer. So it's really important for us to understand more about ourselves, what we are capable of, in what capacity we are doing our gig. And I also would like to maybe discuss a little bit, because today we are talking about the law within the Indonesian esports milieu. I think it is also important for us to take note about how important is law in this growing industry. So actually, when we talk about esports, we need to remember about how nascent the ecosystem really is, but at the same time, it is the fastest growing ecosystem ever. And such condition can be very chaotic because the interest is there, the hype is there, and the attention is there. And that's why we need something to control, a guideline, a rule to make sure that this ecosystem is well protected by some unjust conducts within the milieu. For example, like poaching. We can, right now, we have the parent organization and we try to arrange that kind of transposition so that we can avoid the poaching practice within the milieu. And also, sometimes there are a lot of criminal conducts within the esports milieu when it comes about tournaments. For example, some of the event organizers, sometimes they don't really provide the prize pool they promised before when the tournament is concluded. And that's what we call it absconding the prize pool. So it is important to keep this milieu to be more healthy, more sound, and law plays a significant role in this aspect. Besides that, we cannot really see law as something that regulates the ecosystem. Because law in this case can also help us to build the infrastructure within the Indonesian esports system. So infrastructure in a sense, in this case, when we talk about infrastructure, it can be divided into two: infrastructure in the sense of system and infrastructure in the sense of facility. So infrastructure in the sense of system includes regulatory framework. For example, right now, because esports is already considered as a competitive sport, the parent organization can issue its own managerial regulation, and using that managerial regulation, we encourage the the esports society to establish their own facility. For example, one of the articles in the managerial regulations stipulates that the esports clubs will have to provide adequate gaming halls for their players. And another example would be the parent organization can issue a mandate for the regional administrator to build its own internet powerhouse. So that with that being the case, Indonesia will have a deeper internet access, and deeper internet access across the country means that we are going to have more players. More players means that we are going to have more gamers. So this is how the description of law to actually strengthen the ecosystem itself. So, needless to say, I would like to provide my closing remarks. So, law is actually not only a written rule that prohibits certain conducts, but law is a powerful tool to develop esports ecosystem as well. So, be knowledgeable and obey the rule. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Yudistira, for your closing remarks. And Mr. Wibi, I understand that your prevalence in the esports community is mostly as a shoutcaster. You do provide legal advice for some people, but do you have any messages or tips for people that want to dive into the shoutcasting industry, and maybe you can add a couple of tips for people that want to jump into the esports law industry?
I think it's going to be really hard to be able to sort of beat what Mr. Yudistira said as a closing statement. However, I would like to add that because we're talking about the Southeast Asian region, not just Indonesia, in regards to how we would be able to look or develop your community better with law as a regulator as well. I feel like one of the issues, of course, Indonesia has been evolving in that regards really, really well. I feel like we've been doing so much better than even Singapore and Malaysia, because of course, PBSC is here. Our regulatory bodies are doing its job really, really well as well. But I would like to note that if you are coming from a country that might not be or might not have the regulatory body to be able to support your industry or your community in that regards, I feel like one of the things that I would love to be able to propose and then talk in depth in the future is that have professional labor unions. Because when a regulatory body isn't able or it's not available in your region to be able to help you get what you need or what you want, or just fair treatment between the players and the clubs, I feel like having a labor union would help you have collective bargaining agreement or collective labor agreements that would be able to put those treatments, those fair treatments in the contract collectively, as compared to just sort of doing it by yourself, and you would have more power that way. So when you are sort of like, when Mr. Yudistira is saying that how our regulatory bodies, our governing bodies, or our parent bodies are doing so much for Indonesia, it might not be the case for other Southeast Asian countries. But do not fret, do not be afraid, because there are other ways to be able to capture the same essence, being able to grow it from inside out, and being part of a union, of a professional player union that is already happening in USASL. There's the NBA Players Association, the MLB Player Association, which is very common even in one of the more popular sports as well. It would help you put that power in your hands to be able to change the things that might not just work really well, or would be sort of a barricade or holding you or your communities back into developing into a better esports community, of course. So don't be afraid to take the first step, and if you ever want to talk it out and you're not from Indonesia, if you have any lawyer friends or anyone that is working in law school, I'm pretty sure you can consult with them and talk to them in length to be able to see what your options are as well.
Okay, so thank you, everyone. But before we leave and we close this webinar, we would like a group photo to be taken. So will everyone in the Zoom please turn on your cameras? Hello, sorry. Before we close, can we have a group photo? Okay, so I don't think anybody is like opening their camera, so I think we can I guess we can just take a photo, just the three of us. Okay. Okay, 1, 2, 3.
All good?
Okay, I guess we're all good. Okay, so thank you, Mr. Yudistira and Mr. Wibi, for filling in as our speakers today. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your amazing insights about the esports law industry. And I guess you guys can leave now. Have a good night.
Thank you, Andra. Thank you, Wibi.
Thank you, Pak Yudis. Thank you, Andra. Really appreciate your time, and thank you for your awesome insights.
New skin ready.
OSIM. Warga plus 62 emang banyak maunya. Dari drakoran sampai banjir air mata. Nonton action yang mantul. Sampai nonton tendangan cantik. Maksudnya ini, mau nonton apapun, semua ada di video. Mulai dari yang bikin berbunga-bunga, keringet dingin, ketawa, sampai bikin gak ngedip. Jadi nonton apa sekarang?
Tak pernah ku berhenti, tak pernah ku menyerah.
Untuk raih peluang, untuk ambil keputusan.
Bisnis Indonesia, navigasi bisnisku. Bisnis Indonesia.
Bisnis Indonesia, navigasi bisnis terpercaya.
Perkenalkan, ini aplikasi terbaru kompas.com. Kamu bisa baca berita lebih nyaman. Buka aplikasinya, scroll, swipe, klik, dan baca berita yang kamu mau. Yang paling penting, iklannya lebih tertata dan tidak mengganggu. Semua topik favorit kamu ada di sini. Berita hari ini semua ada di ujung jari. Download sekarang, baca berita lebih nyaman.